What's up, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to PXA Peeks at Extinction. This is the latest original effort from Iron Galaxy, which is a studio a lot of gamers may not be super familiar with. They've actually been around for a while, but their main business is technical consulting. They do a lot of port work, they do a lot of assisting on other games in a technical aspect. They don't tend to make a lot of their own stuff very often, though they have in the past. They made a Kinect game for the 360 called Racketeer, which no one really paid much attention to, and they also tried their hands at publishing a few sort of couch competitive games, which they very bluntly said didn't work out for them at all. And this is their next title. It got announced last year, and it seemed pretty interesting from what I was hearing about it. They were pitching it as pretty much a AAA effort. And then it came out recently with no fanfare whatsoever. It just kind of dropped. And the interesting thing about this was, this title was originally supposed to be published by a company called Modus Games, who, well, let me put it this way, their last effort was a game called Road Rage that I covered here before. Yeah, they're not necessarily known for their top shelf stuff, which kind of raised an eyebrow for me, but I thought, well, maybe they're aiming to do something a little bit bigger and to work with some more established teams. Well, at the last minute, Modus Games was dropped as the publisher, the game disappeared from their website, and this is now published by a company called Modus Games. This is the first game they've ever put out. They have no website, they have barely any social media presence, but they are listed as the publishers on this, and they also own the copyright. So I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're a new company that sprung out of nowhere. I don't know if they're maybe a spin-off label that Iron Galaxy themselves created. I don't know if they're a spin-off of Modus Games. I have no idea. The story of this development is a fascinating one, and one day I hope we can hear a drunken Dave laying on a giant bombcast maybe relay what happened with this, because, ooh, this is something else. So yeah. So the idea behind this title is that it's kind of like a mashup of Dynasty Warriors and very, very light Shadow of the Colossus mechanics. But it also has a lot of traits in it that you would normally find in mobile games. And the pitch behind this is that it's a game where you fight giants, which I was like, well, that sounds pretty rad. Well, it's a lot more simple than that, and I'm going to show you as we get going here, but there are elements of this game that, well, were clearly left out, and this is a title that was clearly rushed out the door and that wasn't really ready. And unfortunately, it suffers for it pretty badly. So I'm going to show you a little bit here. So I haven't played a lot yet. I'm only 2 of 7 chapters in, and you may be thinking, wow, you're judging this pretty early. Yeah, I am, because it didn't take me very long to know that this thing was not for me, and I don't think it's for a lot of people either, especially for the fact that, this is going to blow your mind, this game is full price. It's 60 bucks. This game, I think, is worth 20 at most. I'm kind of amazed they decided to charge $60 and launch this game alongside Far Cry 5. Because, whew. Alright. So I'm going to show you what the idea of this is here. So basically what's happening is the human race, or this sort of little alternative version of the human race, is under threat of extinction by these enemies called the Reveni, which are basically an orcish race that consists of sort of normal-sized orcs and the Reveni themselves, which are these giants. And they're basically going through and wrecking the joint. And your objective in this is that you are this character here, named Avil, and this lady here is your sister, who is sort of providing guidance for you, if you will. We'll get a little bit to these talking heads in a bit. And your goal here is to try to stop the Reveni and to save as many civilians as possible. And you do these kind of in concert, and you have to juggle a lot of different things and different objectives in order to save things. So the win condition, you will be given a win condition in each mission, and where this thing gets a little bit mobile gamey is that each mission has 3 special objectives you can complete that give you basically 3 stars. And if you get those stars, you get more points that you can spend on upgrades. You can see there in the upper left. So the main objective is save civilians to build the rune convoy. And then I will show you here. And then there's destroy armors, kill jackals, which are the little guys, and then complete the mission in a time target. Very mobile gamey, right? Yeah. So the jackals are these little guys here. So they will, their main thing is that they harass civilians by these little crystal things, which are the escape vectors. So you have to try, the enemies will by default aim for the civilians, so you have to try to get the civilians out and save as many of them as possible. You don't fail if any of them die, though some missions you do have to save a certain number of them. And as you can see here, as you try to rescue them, the jackals will also try to harass you as well. So that's part of the idea. And then at a certain point, Ravenni will spawn in, and then you have to fight the sort of these large giant things. And you have to take them out before they destroy the city. If they do destroy the city, then it's game over. And that's sort of the core concept of it. Now, the missions will vary. Some missions, it's just rescue civilians and there's no Ravenni to fight. Other missions, there's basically just Ravenni to fight. Some of them, it's save the city. Some of them, it's get a certain amount of guys out. It varies a little bit, but it's pretty much just variations on a theme here. And as you can see, as you complete objectives, you get those skill points that you can use to buy upgrades later on. But we'll get to that in a little bit. And
what is this tower?
The problem is, so here's one thing that's really fun. You will get constantly interrupted by dialogue like this. The story in this game is pretty badly written. It's not brilliantly voice acted. A lot of these characters are very, very annoying. They will constantly butt in like this, and if they're not doing that, the other thing that happens is other characters, whether it's your sister or the king of the land in later missions, does something that I absolutely detest, which is that they will nag you, and they will nag you endlessly. If a civilian gets killed, or you're not taking out an objective as quickly as they'd like, they'll be like, Avil, hurry up! Everything is getting wrecked! Why aren't you doing more? You know, these people who just sort of sit off to the side, but constantly complain at you that you're not doing enough. I hate that crap. And this does that in spades. So you're seeing a little bit of how the combat system works here as well. So you might be looking at this and going, wow, you know, this looks very fast, very fluid, almost like Devil May Cry-like. You know, this is kind of neat. Well, yeah, except the problem is it's paper thin. You only have one attack button, which is the X button. And you can attack using basic combos, which are variations of that. And by pulling off some of the more difficult ones, you can do a little bit more damage, but by and large, so you see there was a bit more of an advanced one there. But it's not really necessary. There's no heavy attack button. There's no combo meter. Like, you're not building up a combo meter. There's no, like, you know, a meter where it counts up like a hit meter. There's nothing like that. So really, you might as well just button mash your way through this. So you see, again, we're getting interrupted. So I'm going to show you the concepts of taking out the Ravenni. Now, this, when I first did it, seemed kind of cool, except you're going to see how clunky it is. So the Ravenni are these big buggers here, right? They look pretty huge, right? Now, they have these little different armor things on them. And what you do is you hold down a trigger button. Now, I am playing this with a controller, but actually, this is actually a pretty competently done PC version. You can play quite fine with a keyboard and mouse. The controls are rebindable. There's very good graphics options, something I do applaud them for. Iron Galaxy has done some PC port work before that has been less than brilliant. Back at Batman Arkham Knight, anyone? And yeah, they definitely have not always batted 1,000 when it comes to PC, so they did a nice job here, I will give them that. So you see here, you can kind of run up this guy like you can a building, and what you can do is you can actually, so I'm going to jump down here. Now, I could kill him right now, but I'm going to show you something cool that you can do. So you see, you can do this. Oh, God, that's pretty gross. So, yeah. You can actually do things like cut their arms and legs off to slow them down, and this will become critical later because as they start to destroy the cities, you absolutely have to slow these guys down because you eventually, in the later missions, oh yeah, you can also get one hit with them even if you upgrade your health, which is brilliant, but all it does is respawn you. Whoops, sorry, I bumped my mic. So, yeah, so you will eventually, in later missions, you will have to juggle a lot of things. You will be rescuing civilians, you will be fighting the Ravenni, you will be keeping the jackals at bay, you know, you'll be jumping around, and you'll be leaping from place to place to place. It's very frenetic, very fast, very stressful. Some people are going to like that, some people aren't. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it myself because of the way you have to do it and the fact that in some of the missions, what it demands of you is so precise that if you don't do things the exact way the game expects you to, you're going to lose. And that kind of frustrates me a little bit. So you also may be noticing here, how did he get up when I sliced his leg off? Yeah, well, there's the other thing. You can slice limbs off of these guys to slow them down. It doesn't kill them. They regenerate after a little bit. So you're going to see here, and as you can see, they can still obviously do stuff to you. So you see what he did there. They can still hit you. So you see I did cut off his arm there, so... But if you give them long enough, there you go. They will do that indefinitely. They will just respawn their limbs. But the idea is that slows them down. Now, you see that little meter I got there in the bottom right beside my health, beside the kind of useless map? Yes, indeed. So that is my, basically an energy meter. You build up energy by rescuing civilians, by taking out jackals, and by damaging Reveni armor. And what happens is that your goal is to fill that. Until you fill that, you can't kill a Reveni. You have to have what's called a kill strike ready, which means that you have a full one of those meters. And that's when you run up his back, you target his neck, you let go, and it slices it. That's the thing. All you have to do is hold the trigger down, point the analog stick, let go, and it executes the move. It's fully automated. You're not actually executing a fancy combo, doing a quick time event, anything like that to either cut off his limbs or his head. You're just pressing a button when you have enough meter, and that's it. So you see here we completed 2 of the objectives. I didn't kill enough jackals. Oops. But you see I got some skill points from that, and thus I can buy upgrades. And yes, indeed, we do have upgrades. So, this is where things get interesting. Now, some of the missions in this, as I told you before, are very hard and in a kind of frustrating, arbitrary way. That is still very much the case, but the thing is, you can go back and redo previous missions, and by doing that, you can earn more skill points, which you can use to buy upgrades, which in theory will make later missions easier. The problem is, I find that most of these upgrades don't do a ton. There are upgrades you can buy that will, for example, allow you to teleport civilians out faster. Helpful, except it makes very, very little difference. You have ones that allow you to increase your radar range. Well, you saw how useless that radar thing was there. You can give yourself more health. Except, yeah, you can give yourself more health, but I've leveled this up 3 times, and Reveni can still one-shot you. So it's kind of like, that's not terribly helpful either. Hasty portals. You can rescue civilians faster. Nice, but it doesn't make a huge difference at the end of the day. And you can bounce higher off canopies and trees, so you have a couple of ways you can move around the maps. You can scale up walls automatically by just jumping at them, as you saw. You have a whip that allows you to rapidly yank yourself between different trees and hooks on buildings. You can bounce off canopies. You can bounce off high treetops. You can move pretty fast and relatively fluidly. Except the controls are not very well responsive, and you will be constantly fighting the camera in this game, which is another problem, especially when you're scaling Reveni, which I might show you guys after here. And here's another thing that I'm going to tell you about. See this thing here, Glide and Advanced and Basic Combat? Here's how I can tell you that this game shipped out before it was ready. All 3 of these are maxed out when you start the game. Yep. That is a telltale sign that a game was pushed out before it was ready and before it was balanced correctly. Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which I did a review of, an audio review of on Geek Bravado a long time, had this same problem. If a game has an upgrade tree and you start with a bunch of abilities already unlocked, that is a 100% telltale sign that the game is not complete and that it was shipped unfinished. And I am 100% certain that is what happened with this game, because the controls are sloppy. The camera controls are bad. There's almost no objectives. They slapped on all these little mobile game type objectives, which are usually done on games that were rushed out quick because they're very easy things to make. And yeah, there is something that smells about this game. So let's try another one. So here's an interesting one here. This is a mission called Taking Stock. Now this was kind of an interesting thing. You have one objective, which is just to kill 4 Reveni, right? But it actually is a generated mission. So you see here, it actually picks your bonus medals and the map that you're in. This I thought was kind of cool, because you can play it over and over again, and it will give you a generated level that's a little different each time. I was like, you know what? This is kind of a cool idea. It allows you to mix things up. And I will give them credit for that. Again, that's pretty neat. Like, this map right here is very different from the last time I played it. I kind of like that. So, and here we go. We get another little briefing. Thankfully, you can skip these at least. But I've generally been very unimpressed with the narrative in this. The game also does have a daily challenge mode. It has a survival mode, which is just, again, survive for as long as you possibly can, and you get scored for that. So it's kind of like a score attack mode with leaderboards. It has a skirmish mode, which is kind of nice. But you know what this game is missing that I think would have made it a lot better? Co-op. being able to do this stuff with another person and being able to juggle the objectives between two people and sort of manage the battlefield and be like, okay, I'm going to go take out these guys, you go save these guys, we're going to do this and we're going to combine this together. I think that would have made this game a lot better. Worth $60? Hell no. But I think it definitely would have made it a lot more fun and a lot more enjoyable. At this point, I played this for about an hour and a half on Mixer the day it came out, and within 10 minutes I was frustrated with it, and that's basically all it's done since, is it's just really grinded my gears. Because it's just so arbitrary. Like, though the game looks fun and fluid, like I said, the controls are mushy, they don't respond well, the camera's not very good, there's no real sense of progression or meaningful combat when you're fighting the Reveni. So you see some of these guys here that have this higher end armor. You have to destroy the locks on it before the armor can come out. So you see I'm kind of bouncing off that tree there. Like, you see all these fancy movements that I'm making though that look so neat. It's all automated. It's, you know, I'm not pulling off these neat moves, and that's what's great about games like Devil May Cry and other character action games like that, or the older God of War games, things like that, is they make you feel like a badass, because while the game is obviously helping you along, you also have to do a certain measure of the attacks and combos and special moves yourself, so it makes it feel like you're the one being the super ninja badass. This game doesn't. This game, it's just, yo, walk up to this guy and, you know, pull the left trigger back. So tap the A button. See, I'm not running up his back. I tap the A button and it's just doing that automatically. So it's just run up to him, hold the button. So you run up his back. So occasionally jumping. Oh, except occasionally he'll move and the camera won't do what you want it to, and your guy will get stuck in random crevices of his muscles. And then you get up top here. And you hold the trigger again. Oh, I broke that armor. And now hold that. And ba-boom. He's down. And do it again. And also rescue some civilians. Except anytime you get near one of the teleport points, a bunch of jackals are going to spawn in. And their AI behaviors are all very predictable and easy. One will attack you, the rest will attack the civilians, so you have to jump around and juggle them. Oh, and then you've got to make sure you got to make sure you don't stay away from the Reveni too long, because he's going to wreck stuff, and if you let him, that's going to cause a whole big amount of issues. And we are playing in an earlier chapter here. There are actually multiple kinds of jackals, but really all they are is just a couple of them have ranged attacks, and each one is more of a shot sponge than the other one. That's really all there is to it in terms of the jackals. It's just so simplistic, and it's so frustrating, because the challenge in this game is not created from the fact that the objectives are actually hard. It's that the controls aren't good. It's that you're constantly having to run around and juggle objectives, and not being able to, because the map is so bad, you're not going to have a good feel for what the battlefield is like. You don't really know what the status is, except when your sister character or the king of the land, oh yeah, and that's a problem where you get caught under his armpit a lot too. You know, you don't really have any situational awareness or awareness of the battlefield until one of the NPCs, who is not doing anything, whines at you for the 15th time over whatever your friggin' mystical radio it is or whatever that you got here. And that, you know, that's the problem. They just, you know, they don't help you in any way. All they do is complain. And that kind of thing drives me nuts, because if I was in a real combat scenario and somebody was just whining constantly and not helping me, I'd be like, shut up, I'm busy. And you're doing this all in aid of this paper-thin story and these frustrating, badly acted, badly written characters. And you know, the game looks okay. Like, it's like I said, it's a quality PC port. It runs well, but it's got this. My buddy Wirt actually told me this when we were on Mixer. He was like, "Oh, this is an Unreal game, isn't it?" And I'm like, "How did you know that?" And he said, "Because you can tell Unreal style cell shading a mile away. This is the same kind of cell shading art style that they use in Darwin Project, that they use in Fortnite. It's apparently a telltale. This cell shading animation system is apparently a telltale giveaway that a game is using Unreal, because it's very basic and very." It's sort of, as I understand it, it's sort of like a default system. It's like the equivalent of if you use some store-bought assets for Unity. If you're using this Unreal cell shading system, you're basically using something that comes in the box with the engine. And so it's not that it looks bad, but it does look very generic. And it just feels like this is a game where Iron Galaxy probably had a good idea. Probably, I'm going to wager, had much bigger ambitions for it than they were able to fulfill. Probably from working with Maximum Games, who probably gave them, like, no budget. And I'm guessing from this change in publisher that they had some kind of falling out with them or whatever. And this just feels like a game that was unfinished. I'm sure they had a much bigger vision for this, but it feels, a lot of the mechanics and the way things work feels like it was designed for mobile, even though this game is not on mobile. It's on PC and consoles. And it just doesn't play well. I don't like the way it feels. I find it very frustrating. I find having to to dive around doing these different objectives with very little situational awareness. And, being in a position where I'm dealing with this giant, but I don't have an energy meter filled up, so I can't actually do any long-term damage for him. All I can do is slow him down very, very briefly. And, oh, by the way, even though you spend a whole bunch of these points you earn in upgrades, it doesn't really matter because these enemies can still one-shot you regardless. It's not fun. When I looked at what the concept of this was, I thought it was amazing, and then I played it a little bit, and I'm like, this game just feels like it's fighting you, and it feels more like work than fun. And when there's no co-op in it, no real multiplayer to speak of, just this thin, frustrating campaign, and some score attack modes for $60. That's the crazy part. Like, okay, I don't know what they spent on this. Probably a lot. But I'm like, you know what? $40 would have been too much, but I would have been like, okay, that's a little hubristic, but all right. $20, I would have been like, you know what? I still don't think this is fun, but there's a lot of people who probably do. There's a lot of people who like this kind of precision challenge that this offers, and it does offer that. It offers these sort of the challenge of precision of, if you want to take this out, you got to learn how to juggle this, and you got to do this, and you got to do, you got to do this thing this way, and you got to make sure that you handle this right. I know people who would be really into that stuff. For $20, I could see that being worth it. But this game costs as much as Far Cry 5. It costs as much as the soon-to-be-released God of War, which many people are saying is one of the best games ever made. It costs as much as 5 or 6 or more other indie games that are so much better and have so much more depth and interesting stuff to them than this does. There is no world in where what this offers is worth $60, even if it was a lot more polished and didn't have a bad camera and bad controls, and even if you could do more interesting things with these boss monsters than cut off a limb, charge up a meter, and then go cut their head off. Even then, this is not even remotely close to being on the level of a Far Cry or any number of AAA titles. Or, like, you can go on my channel right now, look at probably my top 10 best rated games for PXA Peeks ever, and probably, I wouldn't be surprised if you could buy most, if not all of them, for the price of this game. Like, it's just befuddling to me more than anything else. Like, this, don't get me wrong, if I haven't already convinced you, this is not a good game, and I do not recommend anybody buy it at any more than $20, or even in that, and only then if you are a glutton for punishment. But the thing I find more about this more than anything is it's just befuddling and confusing to me. What happened with this? So Dave Lang, who is the CEO of Iron Galaxy, is kind of a good friend of Giant Bomb, and he's on their podcasts a lot. He usually does a drunken segment on their E3 shows, and I actually like him because though he espouses some kind of stupid views on certain things, he is generally a very, very smart guy who has some brilliant insights about the industry. He's a CEO who actually he's not a CEO anymore, technically, I guess. He's doing something else now in Iron Galaxy, but he's a game industry executive who always comes across as a genuine human being, which is one of the things I like about him. He tells things like they are. He doesn't speak in corporate PR BS language, and he very much... He's told some fascinating stories about the games industry and his time in it, because he's been around for a while. He spent a lot of years at Midway before he started up Iron Galaxy. He started up Iron Galaxy because of when Midway went under, actually. Actually, maybe even before then. I'm not sure. I would, and the thing is he will be pretty honest. Like, when people were losing their crap at Iron Galaxy over that Batman Arkham Knight PC version, he was polite about it because he was like, listen, Warner Brothers is the business partner and you never throw a partner under the bus. But they said, yeah, we had problems and it wasn't done right and we're going to fix it. We're sorry. And he was genuine about that. And I have no doubt that this game was not... Every time Iron Galaxy has tried their hand at original content, it has not done super well for them. And, you know, I could be one of those smarmy guys who says, oh, Iron Galaxy should just stick to doing ports next time, man. But I'm not going to be like that, because, and for whatever reason, I don't seem to be able to actually get my kill strike on this guy now, because reasons. Oh, it wasn't ready. I was off by like 1%, I guess. Okay, good. So... you know, and I have no doubt, though, like, I'm not going to be one of those smarmy douchebags who goes, oh, Iron Galaxy should just stick to doing ports, man, because they suck. No, no one sets out to make a bad game, and I know that. And I am certain that the development of this game did not go the way they planned, probably because of something with their publisher, or maybe they ran out of money, or who knows what happened. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, that's not anybody's problem but theirs. It's not the gamer's problem that this title is not worth $60. It's not their fault that it plays badly. You know, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, you know, even if the developer got themselves in a bad spot when making it, that's not your problem as a consumer. And yeah, I cannot recommend that anybody buy this, but I hope one day we get a drunken story from Dave Lang telling people what happened with this, because I would love to know. I would love to know why it changed publishers. I would love to know who the hell Modus Games is. And I would love to know why somebody either told them or forced them to put this thing out for $60, because it's not even remotely worth that. It's not worth even close to $60. And like I said, probably the most I would recommend anybody pay for this is $20. And only if you like this type of game where you are forced to juggle a lot of stuff and do a lot of really, really frustrating combat. It's a shame, it really is, because I really like the concept of this. I think there could have been something really cool there, but we didn't get it. And charging $60 for this, I think, is kind of an insult to players, and I do not recommend supporting it for that at all. So yeah, that is Extinction, developed by Iron Galaxy Studios and published by Modus Games. It is available on the PC, the Xbox One, and the PlayStation 4 for $60 US. For the love of God, do not pay that much for it. And if you do decide to try this out for yourself, if you think despite what you've seen here it might be worth a go, get it on PC and buy it directly from Steam so that you can return it within the 2-hour refund window. Make 100% sure this is exactly what you want before you spend any amount of money on it, is my opinion. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. I also do live streams over on Mixer at mixer.com/pxabstraction, and don't forget to follow @pxabstraction on Twitter to find out about new stuff first.